Three grown men vanished from a lighthouse so remote it took 26 days for anyone to notice. The final log entry was dated December 13, 1900. When the relief boat arrived, the last meal on the table had not been eaten. The chairs were still pushed back from the table. Two oilskin coats were missing from the three hooks by the door. What happened to the three keepers of Eilean Mòr between December 13th and December 15th, 1900 has never been officially resolved. But there is a detail that almost every account of this case leaves out, a detail buried in the original relief captain's report that changes the shape of the mystery entirely. We'll come back to that. On a December evening in 1900, Principal Keeper James Ducat would have climbed the interior staircase of the Eilean Mòr lighthouse, trimmed the great Fresnel lens, filled the oil reservoir, and prepared the light to burn through the night. The same sequence he had performed every evening since the station opened. It was ordinary work. It was the last ordinary work any of the three men on the island would ever do. The Flannan Isles lighthouse on Eilean Mòr had been operational for less than a year, having been completed in December 1899 after a construction project that took 6 years to complete on a rock 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis. The Northern Lighthouse Board, the Scottish authority responsible for all lighthouses on the country's western approaches, maintained the station with a rotating crew of 4 keepers, 3 stationed on the rock at any given time, 1 on shore leave on the mainland. The principal keeper on Eilean Mòr in December 1900 was 40-year-old James Ducat. The board's own records described him as an experienced and reliable keeper. His 2 assistants were 28-year-old Thomas Marshall and 40-year-old Donald MacArthur, who was serving as a substitute for a 4th keeper who was on sick leave on the mainland. The light served the most dangerous western approaches of the British Isles, warning vessels away from a chain of submerged rocks that had already claimed dozens of ships across the preceding 2 centuries. The 3 men had food, fuel, and supplies for another 6 weeks. There was no scheduled relief visit until December 20th. No communication system existed between the lighthouse and the mainland other than the light itself. The light went dark on the night of December 15th. A passing steamship, the Archtor, noted in its log on that date that the Flannan Isles light was not showing. The Archtor's captain filed his observation when he reached port. By standard maritime procedure, that report was forwarded to the Northern Lighthouse Board. By standard bureaucratic procedure, it sat on a desk for several days before anyone acted on it. The relief captain's report, when it finally arrived, contained a detail that changed the shape of every question that followed. That detail belongs to the West Landing. Before we get to what the relief captain found at the West Landing, there is something about the timeline that almost every account of this case distorts, and it matters. The steamer Hesperus, the Northern Lighthouse Board's relief vessel, did not depart for Eilean Mòr until December 26th, 11 days after the Archtor's report, and 6 days after the originally scheduled relief date of December 20th. The delay was caused by severe weather. This is documented in the Hesperus's own log. The storm that most likely claimed the 3 keepers was the same storm that prevented anyone from reaching them for nearly 2 weeks after they were already gone. The captain of the Hesperus was 44-year-old James Harvey. When the Hesperus arrived at the East Landing on Eilean Mòr on the morning of December 26th, Harvey immediately noted that no one came out to meet the vessel. This was not unusual in bad weather. What was unusual was the flag. The relief vessel was expected to hoist a signal when it arrived. The lighthouse was expected to acknowledge. Nothing flew from the lighthouse staff. Harvey sent his relief keeper, Joseph Moore, relief keeper, dispatched December 26, 1900, ashore in a small boat to investigate. Moore climbed the 160 steps from the landing to the lighthouse complex. He found the entrance gate closed, but not locked. The main door was also closed, but not locked. Inside, the kitchen fire was cold. The clock on the wall had stopped. The oil lamps had been refilled and trimmed, prepared for lighting, but not lit. The beds were made. Mòr went back to the Hesperus. He told Harvey what he had found. Harvey logged the time, approximately midday, and dispatched a second landing party to conduct a full search of the island. The search found nothing, no bodies, no signs of injury, no blood, no indication that the keepers had tried to signal or escape the island. The island was 39 acres. It was searched entirely. The 3 keepers of Eilean Mòr had ceased to exist. Harvey then examined the log. The final formal entry was dated December 15, 1900. It noted nothing unusual about the weather or the state of the station. Marshall, who typically wrote the log entries, had also kept an informal slate log, a working record kept alongside the official log. The last slate entry describes severe weather on December 12th and 13th. Marshall's slate entry, as recorded in Harvey's report, described the storm as the worst he had seen in 20 years. December 14th had no entry. December 15th had no entry. Whatever happened on Eilean Mòr occurred between the morning of December 13th and the evening of December 15th, when the Arctur observed the light was dark. Harvey's report to the Northern Lighthouse Board documented damage at the West Landing that subsequent accounts consistently understated. A concrete block weighing approximately 1 ton had been displaced from its position at the top of the landing steps, at an elevation of approximately 110 feet above sea level. An iron railing on the approach path had been partially torn from its stone moorings and bent outward toward the sea. A rope that should have been stored in the equipment box at the base of the crane was instead found coiled on a ledge a third of the way up the cliff, at a point that had no practical reason for the rope to be there. Harvey documented all of this in his official report to the Northern Lighthouse Board. That report was dated December 26, 1900. The displaced concrete block and the torn railing were both on the West Landing side. The equipment box at the West Landing had been opened. One of the oilskin coats missing from the hook inside the lighthouse was found at the West Landing. The other missing coat was not recovered. This arrangement of evidence indicated that at some point during the window between December 13th and 15th, at least 1, and possibly 2, of the keepers had gone to the West Landing. One of them had apparently dressed for the weather. The third keeper, Donald MacArthur, had left the lighthouse wearing an indoor jacket. In December, on the North Atlantic. The West Landing faced the direction from which the storm recorded in Marshall's log would have come. The official inquiry concluded, and the board's report states this clearly, that a freak wave or series of waves struck the West Landing while the keepers were conducting inspection or maintenance and swept all 3 men into the sea. The Northern Lighthouse Board closed the matter. To this day, the bodies of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur have never been recovered. The rope on the ledge has never been explained. The official freak wave theory remains the most widely accepted explanation, and there is specific physical evidence supporting it. The wave damage to the West Landing, the displaced 1-ton block, the torn railings, indicates a wave of extraordinary force reached that elevation. The highest recorded storm waves in the North Atlantic can exceed 100 feet. A wave reaching 110 feet, while rare, is not outside the documented range for that stretch of ocean during winter storm conditions. What the theory does not cleanly explain is why all 3 men would have been at the West Landing simultaneously, in variable states of dress, during or after a storm severe enough to displace a concrete block. Standard lighthouse operating procedures required that at least 1 keeper remain inside the lighthouse at all times to monitor the light. A secondary theory, which has circulated since at least the 1970s, suggests the 3 men experienced some form of collective psychological deterioration, what some researchers, incorrectly citing Marshall's log, describe as escalating panic in the entries. A third theory, largely dismissed, proposes that the men were encountered by another vessel and either removed voluntarily or taken by force. No vessel other than the Arctur was recorded in the vicinity during that period. The Arctur.